Summer is doing what it does, right? It's plugging right along. We are halfway through the month of July almost, just a couple of days short of that. I need to just make a couple of announcements right at the beginning. I hate to start this way, but some things just need to get communicated. One is when you come in over the next couple of weeks, probably starting about 2 weeks, you're going to see dirt moving and construction starting on our parking lot expansion. So watch the email. We're going to try to communicate if there's any change to traffic patterns. We'll try to have people out there, our wonderful parking team, getting cars going in the right direction. But just want as many of you as possible to have a heads up. You're going to pull in and you're going to see things all disturbed back there as we grow and as we add parking spaces. We are continuing in our search for our next children's minister. We've been without for about 3.5 months now and praying that God would send the right person. We've done online job postings, contacted a lot of the staff around the area and beyond our area that we know. And so we're walking through that process. God has not revealed a person to us. It's going to be our next leader. So we just need you to keep praying, keep asking God to cause that person's path to cross our path and for us to know that they're the right one for us. But that process is ongoing and wanted to let you know about that. We're heading into the school year. Really could use some more adults leading in our children's area, especially during this time of transition. So think about it, pray about it. That may be you to serve for a service in our children's ministry going forward. Kind of an odd thing. I don't say this very often. Speaking of our children's ministry, we have wonderful ministry directed to 5th grade and below. This particular service, this particular message is a great Sunday for any kids 5th grade and below to be over there and not in here. Not the whole message. There is a portion of this message, and I know we don't have our middle school ministry going on during the summer. I'll try to be careful with language that we use. But just a little heads up to mom and dad, unless you want some really interesting conversation on the drive home this afternoon, you may want 5th grade and below to let your kids enjoy children's ministry right across the hall. We are in Colossians. Matter of fact, we have made it up to Colossians chapter 3. At the end of Colossians chapter 2, if you weren't here last week, Paul is telling us, let's not live our Christian lives, let's not live our spiritual life trying to adopt the rules and habits that other people have that aren't necessarily in the Bible. They may be good practices for them. Don't live your spiritual life trying to please everybody by obeying all the rules that they've come up with. On any matter, any subject, don't try to have the spiritual experience that you hear somebody else talk about. Like, don't try to conform even within your spiritual life to obeying all of the rules that other people have. And in chapter 3, Paul says, let me give you a better way. Let me give you a better way to think about the spiritual life rather than trying to live under everybody else's rules. Let me give you a different perspective. Let me give you a different way to look at it. We start chapter 3 and verse 1 with these words. Since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. So when Paul shifts gears and says, don't live this way, live this way, Paul doesn't start with our actions. He doesn't start with our actions. He starts with our orientation. Paul says, let's start with the perspective you're coming from. Let's start with the mindset that you have and where that should come from. Your whole self, like your heart, your mind, your intellect, your emotions, your passions. Let's orient all of that in the right direction, from the right perspective, and then we'll talk about your actions. But until mind, heart, spirit, emotions, passions are oriented in the right way, you're going to struggle to follow up with the right actions. And he uses this this upward theme. He says Christ has raised us up. In other words, you're not living the life you used to live. You're not bogged down in a previous way of doing life. Christ has raised you up, not just death to life spiritually, but the way you think, the way you see people, the way you see the world, the way you speak. Your orientation to the world is now from a higher level than it used to be. David says a similar thing in Psalm 40. He writes, He, speaking of God, He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. Same thing Paul's saying. What Christ did for you is not just save you, we would say, not just redeem you. All of that's really important. But He gave you a new way of seeing the world. He gave you a new way of interacting in the world, a new way of viewing your life, a new way of viewing the life of people around you. Set your mind, set your heart on what is above. Now, He's not telling us just think about heaven more. That's not what He's saying. Like when you go through a difficult time, just think about heaven. Think about how there's going to be no more problems in heaven, how wonderful heaven is going to be. That's not what He's saying. He's also not trying to use heaven as escapism. Like, don't think about your struggles here. Just think about heaven. Just ignore the problems you have here and just think about how great heaven is. Heaven is not a way to escape our problems. What Paul is saying is, as you view your life and as you view the world, see all of that from heaven's perspective. The place where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. In other words, view the world from the sense that God's reigning over all of it. Like God is the ultimate authority. Christ is the ultimate authority. As you make decisions, as you're living out your life, live from the perspective that I want to be under God's authority in the way that heaven is under God's authority. I want to live under the direction of Jesus in the way that all of heaven is living under the direction of Jesus. I want to see life from that perspective. You are reigning, you are ruling, and I want to live under that. And then he goes on in verse 3 and he says, For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with Him in glory. Christ has raised us up. He's given us a new perspective, but He's given us a new life as well. Like the old you is gone. The old life is gone. The habits that were a part of the old you, they're past. There is a new you that has come to life. There is a new life that is springing up. Now, we're not going to fully realize that new life until Christ returns. That's what Paul's saying. Like Christ is going to come, and you're really going to be that new you. None of the old you is going to be left. It's going to be all new you one day because your life's hidden with Christ and He's going to come and you're going to have this completely new life. But right now, you and I are to live in such a way that we are bringing that new life out more and more. We are living into that new life that isn't fully realized yet. Right? We're all honest here to say there's still parts of my old life that are hanging on. There's still parts of old me that peeks its head up every once in a while. There's still some temptation that comes from the old me. I'm not fully over here in the new me yet. I'm still dealing with the old me. But my goal is the more I live, the more I'm able to live out the new me, the new life that Christ is bringing. Have you ever seen pictures of babies, kids dressed in adult clothes? Maybe you've seen this on the internet, maybe you've seen it on social media, like this guy right here. Cool looking guy. Or this guy. Also, hockey fans, yep. Or this guy, yep, good looking dude. Collar, tie, jacket, this guy. Yep, you gotta love that. This guy, yeah. Now, we know these clothes are not supposed to fit. Right? They're not supposed to fit. You put them in it, they don't fit. Some moms have this great plan, maybe you've seen articles about this, where they put a newborn or they put their 1-year-old in adult clothes, and then every birthday they take the same picture in those clothes. And so over 16, 18, 20 years, you watch this little person that their clothes don't fit, you watch them grow into this clothes that they were wearing. Like they were wearing it, it didn't fit, it wasn't really them yet, but you watch them to begin to grow and fill out that suit, and finally it fits. This is my analogy of the spiritual life. You have it. Christ has given it to you. You have all of it, and yet you're not really filling it out yet. Right? It's a little too big. It's not fitting you perfectly. The spiritual life and spiritual growth is growing into the life that I already have. It is growing into a point spiritually where the person of Jesus and what he has given me begins to fit me. I begin to look like that. I begin to live out what Christ has already given me in this new life. And here's the challenge, not looking at anybody, not talking specifically about you, but there are believers that have been believers for years and years and years, and they still look like a baby in a suit that's too big because they're not growing, because they aren't conforming more to the life that they have been given. They're not growing into the new life that Christ has called them to grow into. Paul is giving this analogy. As a matter of fact, in this chapter, he is going to use the clothes analogy. I didn't make that up. Paul actually made that up. He's going to use that analogy to say, old life, new life in Christ is like taking off the old clothes that shouldn't be on you anymore and putting on the new clothes. Taking off the old behaviors that characterize who you used to be when you were without Christ. Taking off the old motives, the ones you used to have. Taking off the old thought life, setting it off and putting on the desires of Christ, the motives of Christ, the thoughts of Christ, so that more and more you and I grow into this life that God has called us to. Verse 5. Here's how that process looks, this putting off and putting on. Paul says, put to death there whatever belongs to your earthly nature. Put to death is an extreme version of take off. Like, don't be passive in this taking off. Right? Kill it. Do battle with it. Get rid of it. Realize there are parts of you, for a variety of reasons, either habits that you've built or DNA that you inherited or models that you watched for so long, it got really ingrained in you. And it's not going to be as simple as taking one shirt off and putting another shirt on. You're going to have to do battle with some of this. You're going to have to put to death, and you're going to have to repeatedly put to death those things that don't reflect the new life that Jesus has given you. And then Paul begins to give examples. Now, this is not exhaustive. This is not all of the examples. Paul gives different examples in different letters. In this letter, Paul gives a couple of examples of what he's talking about that you and I need to put off. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, such as sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. And now that whole list, all of those, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry, that whole list, Paul is talking about sexual sin. Right? When we read sexual immorality, like we connect the dots, impurity in the sense of joining our body and therefore joining Christ, joining our spirits with something that is not pleasing to God, doing something with our body that is not honoring to God. Lust, we get how that connects. Lust leading to sexual immorality. Evil desires, specifically on the sexual side. Evil desires that then lead to lust, that then lead to sexual immorality. Greed, in this context, the idea of viewing other people as objects of my pleasure, objectifying other people. You exist for me to look at, for me to find pleasure. Seeing other people as objects rather than human, that sort of desire for that leads to evil desires, that leads to lust, that leads to sexual immorality. And then Paul says, all this really is idolatry, because what you've done is you have taken your own desires and put them above God's desires. You have taken your immediate wants, your immediate objectification of other people, and you have made that most important in your life rather than what God says about how you were created and how God wants you to experience your sexuality. See why I told you to take the kids to the children's ministry? We're not done, and I know that makes you nervous. I want to use this as an example of something we do with a lot of different sins. All right, I'm going to use this as an example. I know I should use another example, but our approach to a lot of sin, and in particularly this sin, and that's why I want to use it, is we approach sin, this one especially, from we really don't like that sin. We are really against that one. And so we're going to talk about it a lot, and we're going to make rules about it, and we're going to point it out wherever we see it, and we're going to condemn really heavily. So when it comes to all sin, really, this one in particular, we have a habit in Christian world of saying, yeah, this is a really bad one, and we're going to talk a lot about this one. The other extreme are those sins, and this may be one of them for some people, are those sins that we decide, well, that's not really that big of a deal. Well, I don't think you have to worry about that one. Like, a lot of people exist on one of these two extremes. Really hate this one. You're really bad if you do this one. You're really in trouble if you do this one. I don't really care so much about this one. I don't think it's that big of a deal with God. When it comes to sexuality, we see this a lot in our world. We see this a lot in Christian culture. And there is a lot to say about this topic. I am not going to try to say all of it this morning, but I want to start the conversation. But part of the way we know that most of Christianity has landed over here is because church Christianity throughout history, at least 50, 100 years, we've talked a lot about sexuality, right? Maybe more than the Bible talks about it. We talk about it a lot. We focus on it a lot. We talk about ways to be in the wrong a lot. And it tends to be both rule-based, number one, rule-based, well, just don't do that, right? We'll just stop feeling that way, as if we can do that so easily. Just don't. Don't go there, right? Don't be with that person. Don't be alone with that person. Don't wear that, right? Which we only say that to girls, but nonetheless, we have all of these don't. It's very rule-based, very restrictive, very legalistic, as if we can, with our rules and with our restrictions, as if we can control that particular area. Now, one of the problems, I just slipped this in here, I think we've talked about it before, is the failure to understand the difference between good practices for some people and rules for everybody. Throwback to last week just a little bit. Sometimes there are good practices, things you may want to say to your daughters or may not, but things you may want to say to your sons. Hey, this is a good practice. I would say don't go here or don't. That is a good practice, different from the Bible tells everybody this. Sometimes we have trouble discerning those two. Both can be helpful, but that's kind of been our approach. Don't. Don't think about it. Don't feel that way. Don't go there. Don't do that. Don't wear that. We've been very, very don't oriented. There are, and I know probably maybe you don't have experience with this, there are extreme versions of what has come to be known as purity culture within the church that even says, like, don't hold hands with somebody until you're married. Don't kiss somebody until you're married. There was this really wacky season about 30 years ago of purity culture. One of my community group has talked about this a little bit, where Christian culture tried to convince everybody you shouldn't let your teenagers date. They're supposed to court. And there was this whole book about what courting was and how it wasn't dating and how it was this thing and how they weren't supposed to do this. Because this one bothers us so much, like we get really, really focused. We get really concerned about other people's private lives and really, really concerned about other people's sexual lives. Christians and non-Christians, we get really, really focused on that. An even bigger problem is, along with all of these rules, our approach tends to be, has in the past, and when I say our and when I say we, I don't mean me, I don't mean our church, I mean we're all a part of Christianity, and we have to own some of our mistakes all collectively together. We tend to come from a very shame-based place when it comes to this sin. Very, very shame-based. Like, if you do this, then you've really messed up. Like, you've really made a mistake. Guilt-based. We have at times implied, if not outright stated, to young people, like, if you mess this one up, then you're never going to be able to have a healthy relationship again in your future. Even worse, and again, maybe not where you grew up. Even worse, we have implied, sometimes stated, if you mess this one up, you're not worthy to ever have a really good relationship again. Because you didn't do it the right way. Shame-based, guilt-based, condemning, lacking any sense of grace, lacking any sense of redemption, lacking any sense of hope, condemning, finger-pointing. Let's acknowledge again that and I'm the father of 3 daughters, if you didn't know, so maybe this is why my ear is attuned to this. There is a tendency for the shame and guilt to fall heavier on the side of the girl than the guy, both in the world in general and in the church. The shame, guilt seem to be more focused toward the female side than the male side, but all of it was very shame and guilt driven. There were camps and conferences where one of the illustrations was they would take a flower of some sort and they would say, hey, pass this around to the 40 or 50 people in the audience. And by the time it got through 40 or 50 middle schoolers and high schoolers, petals were falling off and it was kind of leaning over and the stem was broken. And the analogy was, well, if you give yourself to multiple people, then this is what you end up like. And more times than not, the flower represented the girl, right? Because we care so much, let's say it positively, about certain sins, if we aren't careful, we will be shame-based and guilt-based. We will be without hope. We will be completely without grace. We will be without any sense of redemption. We have, if this wasn't your experience, great. It was for some of you. In that conversation, we implied or explicitly stated, if you will just wait till you're married, if you will just wait, God will give you the best marriage ever. It was like a trade-off. It was like a transaction with God. I did this, I should get this. And this was taught. We were, to make you more uncomfortable, we were taught, if you wait until you're married, you will have the best sex ever. Sex will be so good because you waited, and God's going to honor that. And then people got married. A lot of people got married, and they discovered that, and that happened for them. And then a lot of people got married, and they're like, no, we're still humans. Like we still have to learn to communicate. We have to figure this whole thing out. We have to talk to each other. We're both selfish. One of the problems was we spent 23, 24, 25 years of someone's life painting this area of their life with shame and guilt and ugliness, and we thought the moment they said, I do, all of that was going to go away. And some people that I talked to, maybe not you, some people that I talked to said, I could not shake feeling that this was dirty and ugly and shameful because I had been taught that for 25 years of my life. The light didn't just come on for me. We have this tendency to find sins that we really don't like, and like 110% we're on them. And we're pointing out, and we're shaming, and we're threatening, and we're painting dire futures. Now, what's the other extreme? The other extreme is to say, you know what? The whole sex thing doesn't even matter. Just do whatever you want. Like, God doesn't care. Nobody cares. Just do whatever you want with your body. Just have fun, whatever you feel like doing. This was the mentality of Colossae, where Paul's writing, right? It's a deeply Greek culture, and so all kind of sexual promiscuity is happening within Greek culture. And so Paul is writing to a group who live in a culture that is telling them, why are you listening to the preachers? Don't worry about any of that. Just do whatever you want. And we live in that same culture. Let's be honest. We live in that same culture that says to us, married or not married, teenager or 50-year-old, just whatever you feel. Like, if you're attracted, we either tend to reduce attraction and sexuality to its simplest form. We tend to be really simplistic, formulaic. 1 + 1 = 2. Well, if you do this, then that's going to happen. That's going to be the good result. If you do this, that's going to be the bad result, and the bad result's going to follow you for the rest of your life. We tend to be very simplistic. Or even within the church community, right? The world, the church community, we just don't even listen to those rules. And what the Bible says to us, and where we have to land, is messages of hope and grace, because we've all failed. Matter of fact, Paul says at one point to this group of people, just a few verses down, we're not going to read it, but he says, like, you were all doing that stuff. Like, you were all there at one time. Don't forget about that. We have to land in a place where we go, look, I'm not perfect and you're not perfect, but God's grace is enough for both of us. Like whatever's happened or is happening, God's grace is enough for us. Let's come to Him. Let's run to Him. And yes, God puts boundaries around this part of our life because it's so important. It's so beautiful. It can do a lot of damage to us if we don't discover God's design for intimacy within a loving, committed marriage relationship. Yes, there is the potential that there is harm that could come. This isn't God trying to make the goal like really, really tight and small. It's God saying, I have a plan, I have a design, and really this is going to be best for you, and this is going to protect your heart, and this is going to protect your emotions, this is going to protect your memories, and if you failed, God's grace is enough to step in and allow you to begin again. We don't always like living in the middle. Like we want to be angry about everything and finger pointing and yelling at people for the choices that they make, or we just don't want to deal with it. We just want to say, it doesn't matter. Just, I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. And God says, no, I love you and my grace is for you. And I'm calling you to a brand new life. And part of that new life is that you would honor me in this area of intimacy, because I really do want to help you with that. It's not going to give you a perfect marriage. That's not what God promises. Doesn't mean best sex ever, forever and ever. It's not what God promises. God says, look, you and another human that you love and that loves you, you're going to discover some wonderful things about you. And sometimes it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to communicate well. And it's not always going to be perfect, but I'm going to be there. And I really want this for you. Landing in that spot has been, maybe not for us as a church, maybe not for you, historically, for Christianity, it has been hard to land in this middle spot because we want to go over there or we want to go over there. And Paul challenges them. Look, put on the new life, a new life that is under the leadership of God the Father and God the Son, just like in heaven, that is underneath their authority, that is submitted to their authority. He's living out the new life here on this earth. You ready for me to move on, right? Verse 8. But now, because it's not just that one. So that's the important thing. We just want to talk about that one a lot. But now, you must also rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language from your lips. Do not lie to each other, since you've taken off your old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its Creator. Not just sexual ethic. What about anger? Both that inner seething anger that some of us have, because that's how anger expresses itself to us, is we just kind of hold it in and we just kind of think thoughts, and that, or the one that comes out and is verbally abusive, perhaps sometimes physically abusive. All of that, everything that comes under the category of anger, the way you speak about other people, the demeaning language you use about other people, other groups of people. Paul says, get rid of it. Take it off. Take those clothes off. That's not the new life. That's not you. That's not who you are intended to be. Get rid of the anger. Listen, when I hear some Christians talk, when I hear some preachers talk, when I see some Christians post online, you would think that anger is a part of the new life because they always seem to be angry about something. They always seem to be mad at somebody. They always seem to be directing harsh and demeaning comments towards somebody else. Paul says that is not the new life. That is the old you, and if you haven't started taking that off, it is time. It is time to get that out of you. He goes on in verse 11, here there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and in all. There's a whole lot in that summarized to say that there's just no place for prejudice within the kingdom. None. There's no place for racism within the kingdom. None. No place for classism. Okay, I think we'll get to this in the next the last two messages. I think Paul's setting something up, by the way, right here, when he says there's no slave or free. Like he's setting up something else that's happening at this same time that we're going to try to connect the dots to. But right here he says, look, why do you think you're better than everybody else? There's no class, there's no level, there's no racial superiority, there's no ethnic superiority, there's no national superiority. No, we're one in Christ, and Christ is all in all. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved. I love how Paul just repeatedly reminds us who we are. Just repeatedly reminds. Look, if you got bothered by the sexual thing, if you got bothered by the angry thing, let's draw us back in. You are God's people. You are holy. You are chosen. You are dearly loved. Now, out of that, let me tell you what the new life looks like. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves, there's that metaphor, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. What does the new life look like? Not anger, not sexual disobedience, not harshness either. Not condemning. It looks like gentleness and kindness and humility and compassion and realizing you're not perfect, and so you give grace for other people to not be perfect. And you offer forgiveness when you've been offended. That's what it looks like. If you want to live out if you want the new life to come out of you, you got to put the old life off so that you can grow up into this new life. And then Paul makes that wonderful statement. You know what ties it all together? Love. Love ties it all together. Some of you have gotten dressed before. And you got all matchy, and then you put that jacket on, you went, bam, that did it, that right there, like that. The shoes, like you went with those shoes, and you thought, that makes the whole outfit right there. I'm going to kill it tonight. At the belt, guys, that tie, you've been saving that tie for a special occasion, maybe it's a bow tie, and you think, oh man, this is going to set the room on fire. I like good. It ties it all together. My wife does great work all over the state in the field of literacy. And this past week was their annual big summit down in Milledgeville at the college. And they have a governor's gala on Tuesday night. I get to go because she's important. Like I just show up and she's important and I just ride her coattails. And I had the sport coat I wanted to wear, like that pink one that I wore on Easter. If you remember that, I thought, I got to pull that one back out. And so I took a picture and I uploaded it to AI. Like, this is how I got my outfit together. Right. Claude dressed me for the governor's gala. I said, Claude, what shirt goes with this? What pants should I wear? What if I wear these pants? Claude, what tie should I wear with them? What shoes should I wear with? And Claude pulled it all together for me. I look good. He pulled everything together. Paul says, you know what pulls the new life together? It's the ability to love. To see people with the heart of Jesus. We don't abandon boundaries. We don't abandon God's design and we don't abandon all of that. We just live it out in the spirit of love, with gentleness and kindness and compassion. I mean, what if we got up every day for the next little while and we just read Colossians 3:12 through 15, and we said, I'm going to wear that today. I'm going to wear that today. Colossians 3:12 through 15, compassion, I'm going to wear that today. Kindness, wear that today. Humility, I'm going to wear that today. Gentleness, I'm going to wear that today. And I'm going to let love pull it all together. We would look like the new life at that point. That shirt that used to be way too big, it's going to start feeling like it fits. That jacket of humility that we used to be so uncomfortable in, it's going to start becoming just about the right size. Because we're living into the new life that Jesus has already given to us. God, we pray that you would help us. Help us. God, we are so tempted, sometimes out of earnest desire, God, we are tempted to swing over to the extreme of rule keeping and demanding and condemning. And we're tempted to swing over to the extreme of just not even listening to your directions. God, help us to fit in the new life. Help us to wear the new life that Christ has given us, to grow into the new life. It doesn't look like this world. It doesn't look like the attitudes of this world. It doesn't look like the practices of this world. It's new. It's different. And we won't be perfect at it yet. But God, help us to be people of compassion and humility and gentleness and kindness and grace and all of that tied together in our lives with love. In Jesus' name. Look, I know today may have stirred